So I just wanted to add a little bit around contracting. I know this is something that comes up in our courses, and you will have picked up what you picked up from it in the course. But I just wanted to just add this a little bit more colour to that, really. Often people think of contracting as a kind of quite a formal process that starts off the coaching relationship. And you'll remember, of course, that we encourage you to make that connection first. So you can only really contract when you know that you've got someone's trust and you've built up rapport. And of course, that may take a few sessions with someone who's particularly nervous or worried. So when you come to your contracting, it might be that you're going to talk about some of the sort of administrative things you're going to do. So sort of what health coaching is, the timings, the cancellation process, some of the nuts and bolts of how you're going to work together. You might contract for the degree of sort of direction you're going to offer. So some people may value some advice and some mentoring, and perhaps in your relationship you might be contracting for that. And it's interesting talking about appraisals, or perhaps when you're working in a sort of supervision sort of point of view, you may contract for how much someone wants you to be purely coaching with them and how much they might want some other support. But in a coaching context, I really love contracting. I think it's a really important way of ensuring that what you're talking about is absolutely the most important thing to the person you're working with. Very often we hear from people that the GP sort of coerced them, having had perhaps 10 minutes to do a diabetes review, and sort of says, "Oh, I really think you ought to lose weight," or "I ought to think you ought to think about your diet," and they send them to a health coach because they've been told that's a good thing to do, and they get to you as a coach, and perhaps with a little bit of time and a little bit of opportunity to be sort of honest and allow them to speak, they kind of say, "Well, actually, I don't really want to talk about my diet. What really matters is my self-esteem, or the fact that I'm feeling pretty down in the dumps at the moment and life's pretty rubbish." And again, it may have taken a little while before that comes out. So your contracting really allows you to focus on what you're doing, focusing on together. What are you working on? Is it what really matters? I know your GP sent you to lose weight, but actually we've agreed that we're going to focus in on your personal well-being and mental health. Is that okay? Is that where we're going to focus? And I think, although you may not necessarily write it down, having that really explicit contract between you is really useful. I think one of the most useful things is it allows you to call back to it later. So particularly if perhaps things seem to be slowing down, or perhaps someone's not as committed as you might hope they would be, maybe between you have decided some sort of things they're going to start with or things they're going to focus on, and they haven't done them, or they haven't worked so well. It can be really useful to kind of call back to that contracting conversation and just check in, just to remind you both, I think we're really, you told me it was really important to focus on your mental well-being and perhaps getting out of the house, and some things you've agreed that might be a good first point of focus. Is that still important? With that conversation, again, it's also worth recognizing that as people get into things, they may change their minds. They may also feel less confident than they did at the start. They may have found things harder than they thought. So actually, they might want to sort of slow down a bit, or maybe even lower their expectations about how grand a change they want to make. And I think that's the real benefit of having a really good dynamic contracting process. So getting it right up front really helps, but also being prepared to revisit it and come back to it, and together adjust your sights and adjust your focus if you need to. Maybe down regulating it. Of course, sometimes up regulating it. People may say, "I'm not going fast enough. I want you to push me harder. I'm really on a roll now. Come on, I really want you to stretch me." So that contracting process can be really dynamic, but I think it sits at the heart of a really good shared collaborative relationship. Really glad of your views on this. So if you're watching this and you want to share on social and share your views, please do, because it's great to have that conversation. As we always say, there's no one size fits all with any of this sort of stuff.